Welcome to the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast, where it is never too early for fantasy football. My name is Jeff. As always, thank you for downloading, listening, liking, and commenting on our podcast videos. Please join our community by subscribing to us on the socials. Our handle on all platforms is at N2E Fantasy. We are also available on all major podcasting apps by searching N2E Fantasy. Alex, what do we have on today's show?
On this episode of the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast, we are recapping all week 4 action. So, as usual, we will go over game by game and just talk about the interesting points. And we will also start off with just a little bit of league news. Jeff, what is the item of note that just popped up today?
So it looks like the Raiders wide receiver Davante Adams has formally requested a trade from the Raiders. So, and it does appear that the Raiders are shopping Davante Adams, and they're requesting a second round pick plus additional compensation for this wide receiver. Any idea where he could go, Alex?
I'm just gonna sidestep all the drama and go straight into destinations. All right, let's. I think that you and I have talked offline that the Jets are the obvious connection with Aaron Rodgers. Hassan Reddick, they can trade him back. They're almost the exact same contract numbers for this year, so it's a nice slot for him to slide into. That would also give the Raiders, assuming they can get him to show up, a good pass rusher to boost their defense. So that could be a spot. I know that we've also talked about maybe the Washington Commanders to give the potential rookie of the year, Jaden Daniels, a new weapon to throw to, make them more potent. Detroit is an interesting spot for him. Dallas would be an interesting spot for him. Atlanta would be a good spot because they could use a bona fide wide receiver there too. Obviously, there will be no trade within division. So sorry, Kansas City, Chargers, Denver. I know all of you need a wide receiver. It's not going to happen. But, another place that would have been good is San Francisco pre Brandon Ayuk re-signing. Like they could have just swapped for each other there too. Jeff, am I missing anyone? Do you like all those locations? Those
I do. I like
destinations?
some more than other when it comes to fantasy football. I don't know if a rookie quarterback like Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix could support a weekly wide receiver one, which is what Adams can be at his best. I think, though, that there's teams like Buffalo and the Jets there's an easy line to the Jets for Aaron Rodgers' sake, not even for Hassan Reddick. But the second round plus, I don't know. I think there's a lot of teams that are going to be interested, but I don't know if there's going to be a lot of teams interested at that price. If that makes sense.
One name that we didn't bring up is potential. What about Baltimore?
Yes, but they feel like they're firing on all cylinders right now, so I don't know
Not in the receiver department.
Right.
I mean,
but Mark Andrews hasn't done anything yet this year.
Yeah, but Mark Andrews they might be done with Mark Andrews as far as we know.
I mean, his accident might have been worse than we had been let on to believe because he did miss a big chunk of training camp with it. So I don't know. There's going to be stuff that we find out about him at the end of the season that we don't know right now. I have a feeling.
What about the Patriots?
I don't know if it makes sense for the Patriots to give up a second round pick right now for a 32-year-old wide receiver. He'll be 32 in December.
I don't think the Raiders can get a second round. I think they can get maybe a conditional third round. It's about as high as I think they can get.
And we talked about this. Like, he's got to go to a spot where there's some comfort for him. So, like, going to the Jets with Aaron Rodgers, there already some comfort and some familiarity with that. He could go to New Orleans and play with Derek Carr again. I know that was his big thing about playing in Vegas, was playing with Derek Carr, and they kind of need a number 2 receiver opposite Olave. And then they could relegate Raheed Shaheed as just an over-the-top guy to kind of take the top off of the defenses. So I think New Orleans makes a lot of sense, especially after their hot start. And I know the chemistry and the history between Derek Carr and Davante Adams. I know he could support him as a wide receiver 1 and probably Olave as a wide receiver 2/3.
I didn't even think about the Derek Carr connection. I know you offline brought up New Orleans, and I thought that was a questionable trade, but it makes sense with Derek Carr being there.
Yeah, I just want him to be successful hitting the ground running. And I think if he has chemistry with the quarterback already, then that's going to be a big way to go. Could also see him in Detroit. Detroit could always bump Jameson Williams down to the 3rd wide receiver and just have him be the deep ball guy. So that's always a possibility too.
What about the Rams? He can reunite with Jimmy Garoppolo.
So I think by the time he got up to speed, well, first of all, he's not going to play with Jimmy. Matt Stafford's going to be the quarterback there. But I think by the time he got there and up to speed, Puka and Cup would be back, and that would just be a crowded wide receiver room.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I did today. Like, Seattle has 3 receivers that they like right now, and it doesn't make any sense to add a 4th. So I was just running through the list. Dallas makes a lot of sense too. Play opposite CeeDee Lamb.
It would be a dark horse as well because they could use a third wide receiver.
Yeah, and I think that would bump Jamison down to more of a deep ball guy, but we would have to see. Just though, he's wide receiver 10, I think, on the season. That's what I saw earlier today.
Yeah,
not sure what type of scoring though.
But yeah, it's just funny. All of this started with Pierce calling out mystery players, just saying that some people made some business decisions, and we're going to make some business decisions too. Then that turned into Pierce liking a comment on social media about Adams could have played his last down in Vegas. To all of a sudden, the Raiders are looking in, engaging interest from teams and trading for Davante Adams, and then now it's Adams had requested a trade, and also someone was able to grab screenshots and quotes from Adams on the sideline about him telling other players on the field that he wants out, which is pretty bad. The whole situation is pretty bad. It sounds like Pierce is reacting to what Davante Adams said.
Yeah, I think first things first, I think all coaches and GMs and even quarterbacks should stay away from social media for this reason. Those are like the 3 most important folks at running a football team. So even the owners should stay away from it. Like, there shouldn't be any comments about players or liking comments about players on social media at all. So I think it's egregious, and I think it kind of shows. And Pierce supposedly accidentally did it, so it just shows how inept he is, even with social media. So that's a little bit of a problem, a little bit of a red flag for me.
Also, a little bit of red flag to have your wide receiver talking trash on the sidelines with fellow players, saying that he wants out, he's got to get out of here, this is going to kill my career, stuff like that on the sidelines when he's mic'd up. You know, people can record what he's saying. I think that's pretty bad on his side too.
Yeah. I think you're also hearing a 32-year-old wide receiver realizing that, like, this is about it for his career, and he doesn't want to watch it go up in a Gardner Minshew / Aiden O'Connell atmosphere.
I don't feel bad for him at all. One, he got the biggest wide receiver contract at the time. Two, he forced his way off of the Green Bay Packers when they still had Aaron Rodgers. Like, he chose to go to Oakland and get the highest contract. So I don't feel bad
Yeah.
for him that he made a bad choice.
No, I don't disagree with you on that part right there. But he also went to play with one of his best friends, Derek Carr, and the team cut him loose right after that. So there was things that he didn't ask for that happened also.
Yeah, but honestly, they probably should have kept Carr and gotten rid of / never hired McDaniels in the first place.
No, that was a disaster waiting. Remember, they benched him too towards the end, and that was a mess.
We will be watching this week by week to see if there's any trade chatter or any movement on the trade front, as well as if anything else noteworthy comes up, we will be sure to talk about it. Jeff, should we get started on our recaps? And would you like to start us off with the Thursday night matchup?
Let's get started with the Thursday night matchup where the Dallas Cowboys beat the New York Giants. I have this as a very ugly game in my notes, and Giants, they led time of possession even with a weak run game, which just actually goes to show how well of a game that Brian Daboll actually coached here to be able to actually control time of possession and not have a run game. And he actually did a really good job of hiding Daniel Jones' weaknesses in this matchup as well. So I have a little bit of a theory with the Giants going forward. I believe that Brian Daboll will be having a chance to pick out his quarterback of the future this upcoming draft. So we'll see if that's true. And if that is true, then that puts their GM on the hot seat because he let Barkley go. He gave Jones this big contract, and would say that's backwards in my opinion. But I'll let you let me know because we both got this game right. But anything else I missed in this game?
Well, I would just say that The Cowboys looked as we expected on pretty much all fronts except for their kicker finally missed a field goal. So, rip his perfect percentage there. Dak was very efficient. No turnovers in this one. Neither team had any ground game really going. I mean, that's kind of what you expect of these teams at this point. CeeDee Lamb's the clear number one target. Jake Ferguson, the clear number two. Not much outside of those guys. Jeff, I like the merchandise. I'm very curious why I didn't get one, but it's okay.
It must have got lost in the mail.
We start
Shout
selling
out,
to.
yeah, shout out to my dealer for getting this to me. My shirt dealer.
I was about to say, Jeff, you're about to out yourself on to our 6 listeners here. Okay.
Never.
I thought that the Giants were pretty much as we expected too. I'm a little disappointed with Devin Singletary to not make a little bit more out of this, but Daniel Jones pretty sloppy. Malik Neighbors was great until he got hurt. Wan'Dale Robinson, surprisingly, what is he had 14 targets and 11 grabs, which I'm shocked that they don't use more of their wide receivers, but it's
He
very
was the
interesting.
run game basically with the short
Yeah,
passes.
short passes. So Wandale's worth picking up in PPR leagues for sure, especially if Malik Neighbors misses next week. There's parts of this game I thought the Giants were going to win, but Cowboys held on. So it was a decent Thursday night matchup and what could have been a blowout.
Sure was, and it was a little sloppy though. So when you say decent, it was decent. It was close,
It was
but a little
competitive.
sloppy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
competitive but sloppy.
yeah.
As far as your comment about the Giants with Dable and picking out a quarterback, I don't think this year's crop of quarterbacks is nearly as good as last year. So I think it behooves them to try to win some games.
Yeah, they're gonna have to do something though with the quarterback position and the run game, in my opinion. Something longer term than Singletary.
Well, Sam Darnold needs to go to another team. So after this year, you know,
That's true. I mean, I really like what Sam Darnold's doing this year. We'll get to him a little bit later, but I always knew he had it in him, but I started to give up hope until this year.
all right. So that covers that game. We got the Bengals at Panthers next. Cat on cat action here. And
The Cat Bull.
it doesn't quite work, you know?
I had to give it a shot here,
It was
but
a cat
we both
fight.
got this one right too. So there is
Yep.
that.
We both picked the correct cat in this fight.
And that was the Bengals.
Bengals getting their first win of the season. They really desperately needed it to even remotely be in the playoff hunt. Andy Dalton definitely gave them a run for their money and kept Carolina in the game. But honestly, when you can throw just 2 or 3 passes to Jamar Chase and he just takes them to the house, I think it's really hard to get beaten at this point. So I expect the Bengals to continue to build on this. I don't think that this is the end of the world for the Panthers either. I think the Panthers are going to still be competitive the rest of the year. But Chase Brown and Zach Moss pretty much splitting all their touches. I think Zach Moss played more snaps than Chase Brown did, but both of them look like they're going to be very usable now going forward. Jeff, do you agree with that assessment for those guys?
Yeah, and I think that they're both pretty effective too. So I think Carolina's defense is very depleted at this point. I think they lost Shaq Thompson to an Achilles also. So
Yeah.
there's that. And I do believe that Chase and Higgins also went out. Like this team is just, it's hard to guard everybody because you also have Gesicki out there. Gesicki will have a few big games. They have your boy, what's his name?
Yoshi?
Yeah.
Yoshivas?
Yeah. So they have him as well. And yeah, so we will see.
Yoshivas had a nice crucial catch, but I think he got a little banged up on it because he didn't get a target after that point.
Right.
But your Panthers, Andy Dalton had an okay game. Chuba Hubbard had a really good game on the ground, so it looks like the Panthers finally have a little bit of a run game going. And Deontay Johnson had a good game. Xavier Leggett, despite he had a couple drops, but he still had a good game. So he looks like he's the bona fide number 2 now that Thielen's out. So I think Xavier Leggett, Deontay Johnson, usable. I feel like you can't bench Deontay Johnson. Xavier Leggett, more of a flex wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 zone.
Maybe first wide receiver off the bench when bye weeks start next week.
Probably. But Chuba Hubbard, running back 2 or a flex right now? What do you think?
Oh, Jonathan Brooks. That's what I think. So I'm not really
Not yet.
sure.
He's not back yet.
We'll see if they activate him this week. They
It
don't have
sounds
to
like he's.
activate him until Friday.
It seems like they're leaning no for this week.
I think most teams are, but they've opened the practice window for some very crucial pieces out there. Like your Nick Chubbs and your TJ Hawkinsons of the world, they've all opened up their practice window. But they got to get into shape, so I don't expect a big workload in their first week back anyways. So that'll be very fun to balance, but I would say Hubbard's running back 2 right now until Jonathan Brooks is back, and then we're left guessing again, so for a week or two.
All right, anything left in this one?
No. Go Panthers, but I'm repping different merchandise today.
All right. So we got the Broncos at Jets, and this was a much closer game than people thought it was going to be. Broncos won 10-9. So we both picked the Jets. We were both wrong by a point. Jeff, would you say that the Broncos defense is really good and underrated? Would you say that the Jets coaching staff just cannot get these guys prepared? What do you think it is for this week?
I think there's a different philosophy with the coach and the quarterback, and that is a big problem that they can't get on the same page. So that is something that they're going to have to continue to work at. If they don't work at it and figure it out, then yeah, we may be seeing an implosion.
Okay. Well, Bo Nix got his first passing touchdown, but he also only threw for 60 yards against a very tough New York Jets defense. Outside of Cortland Sutton, I don't know what else he can do because there's no one really threatening to catch a ball. They can't get anything going. Javonte Williams, though, 77 rushing yards. That's in the positive direction for him. He hasn't done much of late, so at least that's going. But Breece Hall basically blanked your score sheet this week. He had 10 rushes, only 4 yards on the ground, 14 in the air, no touchdowns. Braylon Allen looks better than him. Is it time to worry about any of these guys?
So I think it's a 1 week aberration. I know I talked you off the ledge with Breece Hall offline this week, pointing out the fact that he had multiple good games so far this year, and this was just one bad game here. Wilson, I don't know if he's going to get his chemistry with Rodgers down this year. This is going to be the interesting piece of it all. I don't think it's just one bad week like Breece Hall, because Breece Hall had weeks of 15, 20, and 16 for his 2.8 performance and half-point PPR, so I'm really not worried about him there. But Garrett Wilson, I'm a little bit worried about. He's currently clocking in at wide receiver 43, and he has only hit double digits once, and it was last week. And he was drafted, I think, as a late first rounder, early second rounder. Pretty worried about that piece of it. But yeah, Lazard seems to be a real nuisance here, and it does appear that Mike Williams is coming on now that he's getting healthier and healthier. So that's someone that I would take the over in catches and yards for the next couple of weeks as his production ramps up.
Yeah, we'll see if either of these offenses can get anything going next week. I doubt the Broncos will until they can bring in some more firepower. But Jeff, should we move on to the next matchup?
We absolutely can. And that is, we have the Jaguars at the Texans, your Texans. This was a very scary game for you, Alex. Like, the Texans really didn't want to win this game until late. And they did. But they got it together. Nico Collins had a big day. Stephon Diggs had a big day as well. I know you and I have argued about Diggs and Collins, but Collins is currently wide receiver 1, and Diggs is currently wide receiver 10. So I know you made fun of me and picked on me for having Stephon Diggs as a wide receiver 1 this year, but I'm feeling pretty vindicated through 4 weeks that he still has a lot left in the tank.
That's not why I picked on you. I picked on you because you said he was going to be the Texans wide receiver 1, and that is clearly not the case.
There's only a 10 target difference through 4 weeks, Alex. Only a 10 target difference.
10 targets over 4 weeks is significant.
It's 2.5 a game.
I know. That's significant. That's the difference between the number 1 and number 2 receiver on the team.
But Alex, should we tell our audience out there that you're rooting against Nico Collins the next couple of weeks so you could get a more favorable extension in a dynasty league?
Yeah, in RSO.
That's bad juju.
In Reality Sports Online. No, Juju's on the Chiefs. in
The
Reality
dad
Sports
joke.
Online, there's an algorithm that changes the contract amounts for an extension based off of performance. So I need him to perform poorly for a couple weeks in a row so I can extend him for cheap. Otherwise, since he's the number one receiver in the league right now, it's very expensive. I want to keep him.
Absolutely. So you just need a few bad weeks from him, where Stephon Diggs could overtake in the target department. Gotcha.
Yeah, throw Stephon Diggs 7 touchdowns in one game. That'll do it.
He ran for his very first NFL touchdown this week. So,
I know. I was surprised that was his first rushing touchdown, honestly.
and not only that, he's not really like an end around type of receiver. Not largely, I should say. But also, he looked like he was trying to pass that ball, so this wasn't even meant to be his first rushing touchdown, and he decided to pull it down and run for the touchdown. That's what it seemed like to me.
Yeah, but I know you thought I was nervous about this game, but you can ask my wife. I wasn't worried about it one bit. I kind of had the feeling the Texans were going to win like the entire time, and that last drive was just awesome to watch. But what I think is interesting is Tank Bigsby has been outperforming Travis Etienne of late. Jeff, are you worried that my last year predictions coming true this year?
I mean, that's like a broken clock. It's right twice a day, and your clock is broken in year one, but somehow you get two things right from the year before. uh, next next year, I forget who where some Marshawn Lloyd is going to be next year's one hit wonder. So everyone mark that down and move him up your draft boards for next year. But I don't really want to talk about the Red game here, Alex. I kind of want to talk about Brian Thomas Jr. and his kind of coming out party.
I
Wide
don't know if
receiver 15 on the year.
yeah, I don't know if it's his coming out party. I feel like he's been pretty consistent at this
He's been
spot.
out.
Yeah.
His lowest point total for a game this year is 7.3, but all the rest of the weeks he's had over a double digit points. So I think he's becoming a you need to put him in your lineup every week kind of guy if you don't have better things out there.
Yeah. No, he's in one of my leagues, he is exactly that. He is currently my wide receiver 3 in one of my leagues, and I got made fun of for drafting him because he was a rookie and he's been performing and he's been in my lineup for at least 3 weeks so far.
All right. Anything more on this game here?
No, I think that's about it. But I think that the Jaguars head coach is going to get fired with another loss. If they lose 5 in a row, I think he's gone.
It is possible. It is possible. But I still expect other coaches to be on the hotter seat first. I would prefer it to be Matt Eberflus, but we will see if that comes true or not. But we both picked Houston. We both got it right. Came down to the wire at the end, but we did it. But the next game is the Rams at the Bears. And we just talked about Matt Eberflus. Matt Eberflus gets a win here against the very injury-riddled Rams. Try to say that 3 times fast. We both picked the Rams in this matchup. We both lost. I don't really think there's a ton to take away from this game, especially from the Rams side of the ball. Did you notice anything from the Bears side of the ball that were impressive in this matchup?
Yeah, DeAndre Swift finally did something and finally had a game. So like 165 all-purpose yards and a touchdown on the ground. So he had a very good game for people who stuck with him and kept starting him.
They are just trying to keep away Roshan Johnson from the starting lineup. They're just trying to make your last year prediction not come true.
Roshan did have a goal line touchdown, so he's still usable. And I think he's overall the better actual running back out of the two. I think Swift is more of a utility knife kind of player, not necessarily someone who you should be trusting with the majority of the rushes, but he had a good week this week.
Absolutely. Anything else from this matchup? Are you ready to move on to one of the games of the week?
Do you think Tutu Atwell is the receiver to start for the Rams until Puka and Cooper Kupp come back?
Probably, and then Demarcus Robinson probably bumps back ahead of Tutu.
I thought Demarcus Robinson would be doing better than he has been, but
I don't think he can
Tutu
handle
last
the 1 and 2
2 weeks.
coverage. I think he needs to be on that third cornerback to be effective for some reason.
No, I liked Tutu Atwell. I feel like last year, the year before, and he's now doing well.
Yeah. It took a little while though, because I think this is his 4th year in the NFL, so I think he's a free agent after this year.
Okay. Let's move on to greater and better things. Let's move on to one that I got right and you got wrong. Um,
Boo.
let's move to the Vikings at the Packers, and you, for some reason, picked the struggling Green Bay Packers. I picked the soaring Minnesota Vikings, who are now 4-0 after getting the victory over Green Bay. Jeff, I'm surprised you picked against Darnold, but it is what it is. What do you make of this matchup?
I went the home team in this matchup. Jordan Love did look a little rusty, but he did play pretty well down the stretch. So this is actually some hope for Green Bay fans as we move through the season, as we get further away from his knee injury. But Darnold is on fire. He got Addison back this week, and let's not forget he gets Hawkinson back probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So this guy is going to be full of weapons. He's already on fire. He's becoming a must start every week, like with Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, all the Sons. Now it's Darnold and Sons. It's not Cousins and Sons anymore here. And obviously we don't have Madison anymore on the team either. So, but if we can flip over to the Green Bay side of the world here, I do need to point out that the current wide receiver 4 on the year is Jaden Reed. And I know you made fun of me when I had him in my teens going into this year, and I feel like I lowered him too much, but I ended up with him on a ton of teams. So I'm okay with it because I do factor in ADP and where people are going to draft him when I do my drafting. But if Jaden Reed only played in the games that Jordan Love played in this year, which was 2 games, he would be wide receiver 12 on the year. So in 2 games that he's played with Jordan Love, if you included everybody else's all 4 games, he would be wide receiver 12 on the season. So he is on an absolute tear this year. He's a guy that is a must start every week on every team. And he might have been drafted as your 4th wide receiver.
Yeah, I think he's someone that most people would acknowledge had extremely high upside going into the fantasy drafts, but there was just the uncertainty of how much the other guys would get the ball too. But now that it's been pretty much decided that he is Jordan Love's go-to target, I think people will adjust from this point going forward, and anyone who got him as a wide receiver 4 is thrilled that they were able to get away with one. So I don't think anyone really doubted the talent per se, but I think even the most ardent supporters of Reed in the offseason didn't think he'd perform as highly as he has been.
I would agree, but I will also add in here a couple of things. So the first thing is he did not lead the team in targets. That was Wicks this week. He was the most efficient wide receiver, though. He did come in second in targets, but he had the most catches. So he is establishing himself as the most reliable receiver on this roster. And I think that's going to go, it's going to go very far for his owners. Also, we talk about coach speak all the time, and I know you got hung up on something that Matt LaFleur said in the offseason where he said that I have 4 number 1 receivers. We don't have just one around here. But sometimes you can't show your hand. This is poker. So he was holding his hand and you bought it. That he had nothing in his hand.
Well, no, because he said he has 4 wide receiver 1s.
Yeah.
And we've had Reed have success. Watson looked like he was going to have success until he yet again got hurt. Wicks came out and succeeded. Dobbs has done well earlier in the season. So I think it's going to fluctuate a lot. But I do like the consistency from Reed the most. Like you said, he's going to be the safer option every week. But any of the other guys could have an explosion any given week too.
Just in week 2.
Any given week, TOO.
You had no idea how to say that.
Oh.
Hey, I got to keep you on your toes there. But great game. Can't wait for these 2 teams to match up again, to be honest.
Yeah, they're in the same division, so they will play each other again later in the year.
Yes, sir. Speaking of divisional matchups, our next game is between the Saints and the Falcons. I got this one right with Atlanta with a last-second kick. And you picked New Orleans in this one. But what were some of your takeaways in this matchup?
New Orleans' offense was better, and I think that Atlanta is very thankful that they've got 2 big plays, one on defense, one on special teams to score, because otherwise they would have gotten spanked in this matchup. I don't think Atlanta's offense could really get anything going. in this game. And it looks like Tyler Algier is going to be the running back one over Bijan at this point.
All right. We'll see there. That's like pretty bold there.
For whatever reason, they trusted Algier a couple snaps more than Bijan Robinson. They called Tyler Algier the big back, and he was more effective.
The big back.
Yep. I like Bijan Robinson a lot. I feel like him not putting up stats is them misusing him and not knowing how to get him in the space or take advantage of his skill set. So I feel like that's more on the team and coaching than it is on Bijan himself. But what do I know? Alvin Kamara had another good week. It's pretty much every week he's a legitimate automatic start. He's the running back one right now in fantasy.
He is.
Doesn't look like he's going to lose that anytime soon. I think he's up by like 20 points or something ridiculous over the next running back.
He's up 6.1 points over Barkley. Barkley has been just as phenomenal.
Okay.
And we talk about this.
And they're like 20 points over number 3, something like that.
Yeah. Derrick Henry's number 3 at 91, and then they're 20 points over number 4.
Okay.
Derrick Henry's right up there. That was one thing that you didn't see coming. But there is a world where people ended up with Barkley and Kamara. And yeah, you guys are probably hosting pretty successful fantasy teams right now.
There's a world you could have Barkley, Henry, and Kamara.
Very easily. First, second, and third round. First, second, and fourth round, actually.
Yeah.
I think Kamara was 4th round in some leagues. But you mentioned Bijan being misused. We can talk about Kyle Pitts being misused, Drake London being misused. Is there a franchise that has wasted more first-round skill positions than the Falcons?
I feel like that's a loaded question.
I can't think of one off the top of my head, so I'm not. This isn't like a gotcha moment.
I mean, previous regime Lions used to draft every wide receiver in the first round, and they never panned out.
Yeah, I could see that. I can definitely see that. But the fact that Bijan Robinson is running back 21 right now is ridiculous. We both had him pegged as the offensive player of the year. They used coach speak on us, saying that they were going to manufacture ways to get the ball in his hands. And then we could switch over to Kyle Pitts really quickly. Kyle Pitts shows up with a goose egg in this one, so there's something going on there. Cousins is struggling on a new team coming off the injury. I don't think we fully appreciated the fact that this is a brand new team, brand new playbook. Him having no preseason reps, probably limited in OTAs and in training camp. And we expected him to hit the ground running with a brand new team and a brand new coach and a brand new offensive system. And it's not really how that works, I guess. So I think that was a fail on our part. I think out of the whole fantasy community.
I do think it'll pick up as the season goes on, though. I do think all of them will be more usable going forward.
Yeah, I think this is the worst that he'll be. Obviously, Drake London is usable at this point. I know we're making fun of them a little bit, but as of right now, Drake London is wide receiver 22, but that's still disappointing for where people had to draft him in the second round this year. So that's kind of insane. They could have had Jaden Reed. There is leagues where I have Jaden Reed and Drake London, and I have to make a decision on which wide receiver I'm going to start. One I drafted in like the 6th or 7th round, and one I drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round. And I'm just like, feels bad.
So if you had to play Olave or Drake London on a weekly basis, who would you start?
Probably Olave at this point. I trust the chemistry between him and Derek Carr a little bit more.
Yeah, but with Olave, you might never get a touchdown.
That is true. But guess what? Olave is wide receiver 21 and London is wide receiver 22. My feelings are backed up by facts here.
Well, they're right next to each other, right? What's the point differential?
They're holding hands. They're holding hands. Sir. That is 1.2 points.
Yeah, that's negligible.
So then your question is basically that Spider-Man gif that I always bring up where they're pointing at each other.
Yeah.
Khalil Shakir is ahead of both of them. Raheed Shaheed is ahead of both of them.
Yeah, Rashid Shaheed is more like, but he also makes dumb plays. Like, he got another fumble loss. Like, the week before, he had a couple drops. This one, he had fumbled loss. He just makes head-scratching mistakes sometimes.
Speaking of head-scratching, Alan Lazard is ahead of both of them. Olave and London in season-long scoring leaders.
Yeah, I'm sure he has, like 2 or 3 touchdowns? And that's why?
Probably. But he's had pretty good weeks every week, so he does need to be rostered in every league. And both Bucks receivers are ahead, which is a little bit surprising because I think both Bucks receivers were drafted after both Olave and London this year. At least London, maybe Olave. But that kind of brings us to our next game of the Eagles at the Bucks. And I got this one right again, Alex. I mean, I'm going to take that every single time here. I picked Tampa. You picked Philly. Tampa wiped the floor with them. And I'm sure if you knew that both Brown and Smith weren't playing, I'm pretty sure you would have swapped your pick. But the Eagles definitely struggled without their two top wide receivers. And that is a little bit alarming. But the good news is they should be getting him back in the next week or so. So they will be fine moving forward. But here you can take a victory lap here as Bucky Irving and White are now splitting 50-50.
What's funny is they both had 10 rushes for 49 yards.
Yeah. And one had a touchdown and one didn't. Who had the
Yep.
touchdown?
Bucky Irving. But Rashad White was used more in the passing game, just barely.
That will be the case going forward. But I don't know if either one of them are really totally usable in fantasy right now. Bucky Irving is currently
They're both flex plays.
Yeah. Irving is 33 and White, I don't see White on the list right now, but he's just not jumping out to me. Oh, White's 35. I went up instead of down. So Irving's actually ahead of White on the list right now.
I expect Irving to earn more and more of a role as the season goes on. So
that's why I bid so much for him in one of our dynasty leagues, and you made fun of me for it.
Well, in the offseason, I didn't think Bucky would earn a role this soon, but he is, so it's working out for you, especially if he takes over the starting job for sure.
Looking into my crystal ball.
All right, when Jeff's done playing with his balls, we will move on to the next matchup.
So we have the Steelers at the Colts in this matchup. Yeah, you caught me off guard on that one, but we both got this one wrong. We both picked Pittsburgh, and the Colts won, but it wasn't the way that we thought the Colts would win. Richardson throws 4 passes before leaving the game with a hip injury, and that kind of leads to Joe Flacco coming in and giving Michael Pittman his biggest game of the season. A couple of those catches were with Richardson, so I will fully cop to that. Jonathan Taylor did get injured in this game, so we'll see if he's able to play this week. They say that it's a mild high ankle sprain. I've never heard that before, but this is first time that I'm hearing about a mild sprain. And then Justin Fields looked good, but Steelers suffer their first loss. So he plays good, but the Steelers lose. So that doesn't really make sense in my head. Any takeaways from this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, it was a close one, 27-24. Fields had a fumbled loss, and Pickens had a fumbled loss, and those plays really are what did the Steelers in, just with what could have been almost a really good game for them. But you buried the lead here. Anthony Richardson completed 75% of his passes. You said it couldn't be done, Jeff, and he did it. He pulled it off. Sure, you're gonna point to the fact that he got hurt in this one. No, he never stays healthy. Well, he's played in more games than Jordan Love, and he's played in more games than Bryce Young. So I think he's doing pretty good, Jeff. I think he probably only misses a week, maybe at max 2, and he's back out there again. But
so his completion percentage through 4 games, which he played 4 games last year too, and he was done after that with a 2-2 record. Also, his completion percentage for the season is 50.6 right now, and with 3 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. That sounds really good and like a starting NFL quarterback. But Joe Flacco came to the rescue. I believe if Anthony Richardson played in this game, then the Steelers would have won this game.
I mean, it's debatable. I think that the Colts were doing well with Richardson in, and you can say, hey, that's the scripted early part, and that's fair enough. But I think Richardson was making strides up until he got hurt, and one of them was his fault. He got 2 really big hits. One of them was his fault, and one of them he went down on a knee, whether he slipped or whether he intentionally surrendered himself and got hit by the defender with what could have been called, but was probably in the gray area anyway. I wouldn't necessarily credit him for being at fault in that one, but that's
That
the one that knocked him out.
Was stupid though, because he had just gotten hit and hurt. Like, why are you running after you just missed a play?
Because that's what the coaching staff wanted him to do. That was a designed run. So
Yeah.
you can put that one on Steichen if you didn't think he should be running. I don't think he's a pocket quarterback. I think he needs bootlegs and designed runs to function, so you have to do it. But I was very impressed with Justin Fields.
Best game
This
of
was
his
what,
career, maybe.
yeah, this was a better game than any of the Chicago games. And I would say Arthur Smith is just barely an upgrade over his Chicago coaches. So I don't know if this is where this has been, but Justin Fields is going to be starting next week. I don't know if Russell Wilson will ever touch the field at this point, Jeff.
We'll see. He's going to start ramping up activity this week, and Tomlin has not named a starting quarterback just yet for the rest of the season. He did say Fields would play this upcoming week, though.
George Pickens, 113 yards on 7 receptions this week. Pat Fryermuth, 57 yards on 5 receptions for a touchdown, was finally usable this week if you dared to start him.
Who
Najee
didn't?
Harris was better as a receiver than a running back this week, which is not something I'd ever say in my entire life, or thought I'd ever say in my entire life. Jeff, are you worried about the rushing attack for the Steelers?
No, I think the Colts, I feel like, really focused on the run the last 2 weeks after they were Swiss cheese the first 2 weeks of the season. So there is that. But I do expect there to be some regression to the mean for the Steelers. So they have a rushing quarterback, should open up the run game for the Steelers. I don't know why Najee is not having a better season. I don't know if it's carries. I don't know exactly what it is, but he's a runner that gets stronger as the game goes on. We did see that last year. That is what carried them into the postseason with Mason Rudolph. I know you'll argue with me about that until you're blue in the face, but it is Najee Harris that carried them into the postseason last year. But he's went from 20 carries to 17 to 18 to 13. Like, why was he down to 13 carries this last week? I know it was for 19 yards, which scary because Swift kind of did the same thing. So is the Colts defense getting better too?
I think, like you said, they made a point to shore up their run defense, but obviously they can only do one thing because they got torched by Justin Fields of all quarterbacks. So I really don't know what to make of the Colts defense at this point. I just think Pittsburgh seems to have been struggling running the ball so far all 4 weeks. I feel like, other than from the quarterback position and randomly Cordarrelle Patterson. So
Yeah. So we'll
I
see if Fields can put another week like this together, though.
Yeah, that would be impressive to see. I, for one, would like to see Najee be more effective, even though I don't have any shares of him this year. I think that he's better than 19 yards. Not as big of a fan of him as you are, but I think that I'd like to see the whole Pittsburgh offense look better going forward. And I'd like to see Anthony Richardson healthy and playing again. I think they're in good hands with Joe Flacco as the backup, taking over if he needs to. I'm totally fine with either quarterback that starts. And I'm looking forward to Pittman doing well next week and Trey Sermon probably starting next week at running
Absolutely.
back.
We'll see how mild this high ankle sprain is, and then we could see our buddy Jerome in our league be able to start Trey Sermon this week if Taylor's out.
Wow, an actual shout out. All right. Okay, so let's move on to a not so pretty game, a not very competitive game, and that is the Patriots at the 49ers. The 49ers pretty much spanked them 30-13, and I feel like the 49ers were just being nice to them to let them even be that close.
I think
Ramondre Stevenson had a game to forget in this one. Antonio Gibson was useful out as a receiver. The actual receivers for New England did pretty much nothing. For the 49ers, Jordan Mason had another good game starting in place of CMC for the third week. Juwan Jennings, still the number one receiver for this group. George Kittle had a touchdown. That's pretty much it, other than San Francisco was just the better team all around.
Yeah, some of me wonders if San Francisco is playing this game not to get any more injuries. So that maybe that was why they were nice to the Patriots and didn't knock their socks off. But the rumor is the Patriots are getting ready to switch to Drake May shortly. So that'll be interesting. We both picked the 49ers in this matchup. I think both teams are exactly what we thought they would be.
Interesting that you say that about Drake May, because I've heard the opposite, that they desperately don't want him in this situation because they're afraid of ruining him, and so that they're going to keep sticking to Jacoby Brissett as long as they feasibly can.
We will see what they do, but there is a report that came out today that they believe Drake May is ready right now.
Interesting.
So we'll see if they make the switch.
I think he's better than Brissett right now. I don't want him to get beaten every single week to a pulp, but
Oh, he will.
we'll see.
But the beat writers for the Patriots get sense that Jared Mayo and the Patriot players feel Drake May is ready. But to your point, the article goes on to say what concerns the staff is the group surrounding the quarterback, and they expect May to get the go-ahead sometime in November.
Okay.
I think at the minute that they're eliminated, there's no reason not to put May out there.
Yeah, I agree.
And let him play loose and free, and actually give him like a say in the offense. I mean, it's rare that coaches do that because they have such big egos. But yeah, we could definitely see it get to a point where May could play some more college style or like whatever he's comfortable with, and that becomes more a part of the playbook going forward if he's successful with it. So I think they should give him a shot.
So what you're saying is in November, it's gonna be May.
It's gonna be May.
Yeah.
It's my
I don't.
favorite thing because that's
I
my
don't
birth
know
month.
how that's not a fantasy football team name right now. I don't think I've seen that yet.
I think you just came up with your fantasy name of a team that you were trying. You're like, I don't know what to call this team anymore.
But I don't. I like to have the actual player when I make those
Go pick him
names.
up.
I don't know whose team he's on and if they would even trade him to me.
Treat him Trey Tucker because I know you just tried to get him poached.
It'd be funny if that person actually has Drake May too. I would do that.
Absolutely.
I would do that just to have credibility for that name.
I know you would. You. There's nothing you wouldn't do to have a good team name.
Oh. All right, let's burn through the last few here and move on to the Commanders at the Cardinals. We both picked Arizona to win this, and the Cardinals, in fact, lost. The Commanders got their third victory of the year, so they are 3-1, and they look like a much better team than the Cardinals throughout this. Jeff, it's kind of amazing that with seemingly less talent on offense, the Commanders have done so well, and Jaden Daniels has looked like the rookie of the year this year. What was it, a 92% passing completion percentage? And it wasn't just all short passes. He averaged 11 yards per attempt. Cliff Kingsbury got revenge on the Cardinals after he got fired by them. What do you make of this matchup, and where do you see these two teams?
So I see the Commanders as actually a very menacing team this year. They'll probably sneak into the playoffs. They'll be really close for that 7th seed at the end of the year. But they're going to be a team that's going to be a disruptor. I think Carolina's a disruptor right now with Andy Dalton in there, and I think the Commanders are going to be a disruptor as well. But we'll see if they have the firepower to make the playoffs. And I know we toyed with Devonta Adams going to the Commanders, but I do think that this is a momentum building year for them. But forget rookie of the year. How about MVP for Jaden Daniels right now? Like, he's playing pretty close to that level. And he's the reason why they're winning games, too. Him and Brian Robinson Jr., who's the better B. Robinson out there. Should have picked him.
I'm sure everyone meant to pick Brian Robinson, and they just clicked on the wrong guy. I'm
I
sure that's
did.
what it was. But let's pump the brakes on Jaden Daniels winning MVP. Let's see if he can do this every single game and not just win against three bad defenses. That one loss, granted, his first NFL game of the year, but it was against the only above average defense that they've faced so far. So as the games get tougher, let's see if he can still play at this high of a level. Maybe he'll be able to sustain it. Maybe they'll be able to bring in like someone like Devontae Adams or Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins, someone to bolster this passing offense. But you also have to give props to Cliff Kingsbury, who has successfully got this offense moving with not very many good wide receiver options on this team.
Yeah, I can agree with that. But I was looking up something here in the background, and it's about a player that you're very excited about in the future, and that's the Cardinals running back Trey Benson, and it does seem like he's starting to get more and more run. He's like the direct backup now to James Conner, and I think that that could be swinging more and more in his favor as the season goes on. So I know he's on the waiver wire for a few leagues out there, and I've been scooping him up at every chance that I get because if anything happened to James Conner, which we've all known that stuff happens to James Conner every once in a while, he's a guy that could fill right in for him immediately.
Yeah, and even in a negative game script, Trey Benson still had 50 yards rushing off of 9 rushing attempts. So,
Mm-hmm.
although James Conner got the bulk of the carries here, he still had a meaningful usage this week.
Yeah, and I expect that to continue to grow because this was his best fantasy performance so far in his young career.
All right, let's move on to Browns at Raiders. And Jeff, we both got this right. We both picked the Raiders. I'm still shocked that you went with the Raiders instead of the Browns because I know how much you love the Browns, and hate the Raiders. But Raiders won this game, and they finally showed life in their run game. Looks like Alexander Madison might end up being the number one running back for this team. I know you don't like him, but Antonio Pierce says he deserves more touches. He was more effective as a runner. Zamir White lost a fumble as well. So look for Alexander Madison to be the guy going into next week. I don't know how long that's going to last, but he will be the lead back and touches. Devontae Adams benched in this one, like we discussed earlier in the episode, on his way out, being shopped. Trey Tucker, in my opinion, is going to be him and Brock Bowers are going to be the 1 and 2 targets for this team.
Kobe Myers getting sprinkled in there.
Yeah, maybe. Gardner Minshew still has retained the quarterback role so far. We'll see how long that continues to last. The Browns, though, 1 and 3 record. Deshaun Watson, although he has a good passing completion percentage, I don't know if he's good enough to continue starting. Jeff, between Deshaun Watson, Jerome Ford, Jerry Jeudy, and Amari Cooper, are you worried about the Browns? I know Chubb is coming back soon.
Yeah, he's been his practice window has been opened. The Browns have no run game, so this game script that they're doing right now falls solely on Watson's shoulders, and we all know that Watson got shoulder surgery in the off season, so his shoulders cannot bear the weight that the Browns are putting on his shoulders right now. But as soon as Chubb returns, and if Chubb can handle 15 to 17 carries a game pretty soon here, and within the first month of coming back, then that'll be a huge lift. I think that ruins Ford's value completely. He would be a bench stash for Chubb injury concerns. I don't really have an injury concern if he returns from this because they were smart and they went slower with it. The Raiders really didn't have much of a run game either. I know Madison had a couple good runs, and I know the coach said that they're going to go to Madison. He did say that after week 1 as well, and we are still here. So I'll believe it when I see it with Pierce. Adams was a late scratch because of his hamstring, so he really wasn't benched per se. We don't know how serious it is, but there was a report before the game that he could miss multiple weeks. So we don't know really who leaked that and like what incentive they had to leak that. So we don't know if it's from the team where they knew that they were going to trade Adams, or we didn't know if it was from Adams who wanted to be traded. So we'll see. But it's hard to trade an injured asset too. So I don't know how injured he really is.
Yep. I just want to point out for the Browns that Deshaun Watson has been sacked 19 times over 4 games. They are missing their top 4 or 4 of their 5 starting offensive linemen. So they're in a really bad situation right now where things just aren't going right for them. Maybe they can turn it around later, but I'm not hopeful for the Browns.
Absolutely. So we'll see there. I want to see what Watson looks like with Chubb out there. And it doesn't seem like him and Amari Cooper are fully on the same page just yet.
Okay, looks like we have 4 more matchups for you guys. The next one, the Chiefs at the Los Angeles Chargers. In a close matchup, the Chiefs won 17-10. We both picked the Chiefs. We got this victory. In this really bad game, it looked like Herbert was limping half the game, and on the other side of the field, after just a few snaps, Rashee Rice did something to his knee that we still don't know exactly what the injury is yet. They thought it might have been an ACL. Then they said it might be something less than that. More, we don't know. So these two offenses, I don't know if they'll ever look good again. What do you make of these two teams right now?
So the Chargers are going into their bye week right now, which couldn't come at a better time for Justin Herbert and his leg, his ankle and foot to get a week off. Chargers run game disappeared, which that does appear how teams are going to guard them as long as Justin Herbert's ankle is bothering him, because they're going to make him throw the ball. They're going to make him keep the ball in his hand. It's funny because Rice hurt his knee, which I do anticipate to still be an ACL injury. I don't know if it's a tear or what, but I do anticipate it to be season ending as well. I think they're just waiting for the swelling to go down to get better imaging of the knee. But Mahomes was the ones that actually tore Rashee Rice's knee up. So that was pretty interesting. And then also, it's appearing that Kareem Hunt is now the lead back in Kansas City, which makes zero sense. But Kelsey is showing signs of life and will have to do so going forward without Rashee Rice.
It was going to be Carson Steele, but he fumbled the ball and was not let back in the game after that. So,
Chargers almost stole this game from the Chiefs, too.
yeah. But this is 2 weeks in a row that the Chargers' run game couldn't get anything going. And so, Herbert, this is the most he's passed, I think, this season,
Yeah.
27 attempts. It looks like Lad McConkey has risen that ladder to be the number one wide receiver, potentially, going forward. Quentin
We'll call
Johnston
them
did
1A
not
and
play
1B.
well. What now?
We'll call them 1A and 1B.
Quentin Johnston did not play well. I think Palmer will settle in as the number two. I think Quentin Johnston is if no one's covering him, they'll pass to him. But I think people aren't letting him get the easy catches anymore, and now he won't catch the ball.
Johnston is wide receiver 30 on the season. McConkey is wide receiver 33. So I don't know what you're talking about.
I think McConkey has 2 touchdowns, and Quentin Johnston's resting on those 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's gonna stop, and then McConkey will pass him this week or next week. Yeah, next week.
Yep, we will see. But I think teams are making Justin Herbert throw the ball when his ankle is bad. So I think they're making a very conscious decision on that because it coincides with his ankle injury.
Okay, so like you said, Chargers going into the bye this week. We will not be talking about them really on the next episode. Kansas City probably will end up trading for a wide receiver at some point this year, I would think. But in the short term, Travis Kelce and Xavier Worthy are probably going to get a lot more targets, I would guess.
Absolutely. I would start them going forward. I benched Kelsey in one league for Pitts this week, and I couldn't have been more disappointed.
Man, well, at least one of them will start performing now.
Exactly. Exactly. So, speaking of teams that need to start performing again, the Buffalo Bills did not show up against the Baltimore Ravens this week. We both got this one wrong, Alex. And I almost feel like the Bills needed this loss to come back down to earth. Their defense is very depleted right now, and it was shown in this game. And Derrick Henry looked like the king again, and rumbled, stumbled, and fell into the end zone, and even fumbled into the end zone once. But he looked great, man. He's running back 3 on the season, and yeah, I'm impressed with this team right now.
No, it looks like everything went through the running backs. Unfortunately, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews were quiet this week, but like you said, Derrick Henry, watching the game, ran over everybody. It didn't look that fast, but sure looked like nobody wanted to tackle him.
And it got worse as the game went on because you guys are hurting, and you've been taking a pounding all game, and you got this 200-pound guy, 250 guy running at you. You are screwed.
And then you got the number two running back there getting some usage in the backfield as a catcher, as a
Yep.
receiver. Justice Hill, 6 receptions, 78 yards through the air, and a touchdown. Look, he just diced people up. Like Derrick Henry destroyed people by running into them and running over them, and Justice Hill just like bounced around and found lanes, looked really good out in space. So
So
this
is
is
their
a nice
running back
one-two
duo
punch.
name called Slice and Diced?
I don't know.
There used to be thunder and lightning, but I've never heard of sliced and diced. But you can expect Keaton Mitchell to take some of that role of Hill when he comes back too.
I was trying to think of something with justice. Like,
Justice League,
I was gonna say, like,
King
justice and
Justice,
retribution, crime and justice. I don't know.
King Justice, King of the Hill,
Uh,
King
there you
Henry
go.
and Justice Hill,
Yeah,
King of the Hill.
but Bills basically not got nothing going. Shakir had a salvageable night, and that was pretty much it.
He looks like the one, and Coleman had one bad drop, but he also was featured a little bit after that too. The Bills did have momentum though in the second half until Brady called a trick play where Josh Allen fumbled the football on the trick play, and Joe Brady is completely copped to this that it was his fault for calling that play, and he's taken full responsibility for kind of the momentum losing play of the game. Because I think if they scored there, it was a 1-score game, and that's a much different game than fumbling there.
I love how you give certain coaches grace, and then other coaches you attack them for so-called bad decision making.
Yeah,
But
no one was asking him to take accountability for that, and he did though, and I kind of appreciate that, I guess, because it could have been just as bad as Josh Allen executing that play, but he took the whole heat for it, which kind of feels like the right thing in that situation. I don't know why.
I think he just wants to keep his star quarterback happy and took.
Yeah,
I bet even if it was Josh Allen's fault, he took the blame to keep him happy.
I think that's only their second loss as OC and quarterback together, and they've almost played a year together now.
I mean,
So
do we count the playoffs too, or
yeah, that was their one loss
okay?
last year, and this is their first loss this year.
All
I think
right.
they're something like 11-2 under Joe Brady.
I mean, he's been a vast improvement over what they had
Yeah,
before.
and that might be why I'm willing to give him grace as his record too. So to be fair, there, like if you're pulling an 11-2 record in your first 13 games as a OC, then I'm probably going to be like, okay, you're allowed to have a mulligan on certain things.
But you're not going to cut credit for the first coach to get the Lions a playoff victory.
Nope.
I feel like that's a much bigger deal.
Well, he can't be responsible for the 1985 Lions or the 1992 Lions because he wasn't around then. So he can only take his current year Lions to the playoffs and win. Can't time travel.
All right. All right. Anyway, let's move on to more good picks by me. We had the two Monday night games left, and that's the Titans at the Dolphins. Jeff erroneously likes Mike McDaniels, who is a terrible coach, and picked Miami. I picked Tennessee because they were due a victory, and Tennessee won.
What's
Even
this
though Will
due a
Levis got
victory
hurt,
thing?
even though Will Levis got hurt and Mason Rudolph came in, Tennessee still won this game because Miami can't do anything, apparently.
Miami's on their third quarterback, one that they just picked up off of a practice squad of another team 2 weeks ago. So they are struggling at the most important position.
To be fair, their second quarterback never should have been their second quarterback. Skylar Thompson should have been their third quarterback. They should have had someone else behind Tua.
They should have kept Mike White that they paid the year before.
Yeah, I agree. Mike White is better than the other quarterbacks on this roster. But this is really going to show that Tua might be better than people gave credit because Miami hasn't been able to come close to replicating it with anyone else so far. I mean, maybe Ryan Fitzmagic will come out of retirement.
Let's go. But I
I'm
expect Tua to be back week 8. There isn't much to take away in this game, honestly. Quarterback play was so bad for the Dolphins. Mason Rudolph wasn't much better on the Titans side. It's just a hard game to have some takeaways, but it was a pretty terrible game overall too.
Yeah, I pretty much as soon as the next game, as soon as the Lions Seahawks came on, I paid more attention to that because
Which
this
we
was
both
just
got
brutal.
right. So that's why you paid more attention to it. It was a great game. And yeah, Goff was perfect 100% in this game, even caught a touchdown pass from David Montgomery. David Montgomery was electric in this game. St. Brown was electric in this game. Like there's just a whole bunch of Gibbs was electric in this game. This game was good for Lions players. Also, Kenneth Walker's return was pretty electric. I can't believe they didn't use Charbonnet as much as they did the previous two games. But yeah, if these teams play again, if they even play again in Seattle, then yeah, I could expect another close game like this.
These are two teams that I really like, and I appreciated the game. It was fun to watch. I like being right. I like the Lions getting that victory too. So we'll see if Mr. Goff can get that MVP, and we'll see if the Lions can actually make it far this year and maybe go to the Super Bowl. I don't think the Seahawks are quite as good as their record indicates, but I think that when you have Kenneth Walker just trucking people left and right and getting 3 touchdowns, I think they're going to be competitive in any game that they're in. So they have the capacity to win. Good game overall. Nice closeout to the
Absolutely.
week.
Yeah, 3 legitimate pass catchers for the Seahawks as well.
Okay. Anything else to add before we close out?
No, I think we are good, and I'm glad you acknowledged my shirt by Amber.
You'll have to send me a link to that or something, or maybe we can post a link. I don't know. Let's figure something out. But that does it for another episode of the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you all for downloading and listening to this episode. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please leave us a comment and share the show. Every little bit helps.
You can find us on all podcasting apps by searching N2E Fantasy with our handle at N2E Fantasy on all social media platforms. Please join our community and give us a follow. Until next time, take care of yourselves and remember, it's truly never too early for fantasy football. Thank you again.